Hi, everybody. My name is Michaela Beyer, and today I am talking with Spike. He is the lead singer of the Quireboys, and he has had a long career. Recently, he reformed the original version, sans, of course, Sky Bailey, who just passed a few months ago. Thank you so much for coming on, Spike.
Thank you for having me. Great. How are you doing, Michaela?
I'm lovely. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Beautiful English summer's day.
Nice.
Unfortunately, I'm inside. But well, yeah, all good. And you're in Hollywood.
I am. I'm in North Hollywood, and I'm also inside. But beautiful sunny day. I survived the hurricane, so
yeah. Okay. How was that?
It was a little bit scary, but thankfully I was not kind of in the thick of where most of the damage took place, so I'm okay. Just not even a broken knickknack. So.
Well, that's good. I learned a huge lesson when I lived in Los Angeles. Never take your car out when it's been raining, because Americans can't drive. And every time I've took me where people in Los Angeles can't, because every time I've took my car out, or whenever I took a car out, somebody always smashed into me.
Yeah.
So I won't go out when it's raining.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. And the drainage is so bad here that it floods. It's not ideal driving conditions at all after it rains. So I totally get where you're coming from. Okay.
I'm just kidding about American drivers. And it was women. Just kidding.
It's okay.
English humor, everybody.
Hey, we love it. That's cool.
Okay.
Alrighty. So let's start from the very beginning. Where were you born and raised?
Do you want to go through all that? Okay.
Of course.
I was born in Gateshead. I'm from Gateshead in Newcastle, just over the bridge from Newcastle. And I grew up in Gateshead. Same place as Paul Gascoigne, from the same area, the footballer, the legendary footballer. And a lot of Geordies, we're called Geordies where I'm from. And football is our life there. Football and music.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I grew up, but then, funny enough, then I moved. My dad bought a hotel. We moved to Northumberland in a place called Corbridge, which is near Hexham, and now all my family live up in that area near Hexham.
Nice. And was anyone in your family musically inclined?
If you heard my two sisters sing, and my mom, no, they are not musically inclined. But believe it or not, my dad, well, actually my Uncle Willie, who unfortunately got killed in the Second World War, I've still got his violin. He's got a Stradivarius violin that he left me. And so my nana was very musically inclined. She could play the piano by ear. My Uncle Willie was a great musician. And my dad was a wonderful whistler, like that. We used to whistle like that, like Ronnie Renauld. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. That type of thing seems to have gone out of fashion now. But no, my sisters were definitely not musically inclined. But Francesca, my niece, she's a singing teacher now, and she's very musically inclined. So it goes down in the family, I think, to different generations.
Nice. Yeah. Now, when did you realize?
I was asking her for singing lessons, and she said, my name is Uncle John. They don't call me Spike. Call us Uncle John. And I says, come on, give me a singing lesson. She went, nobody can teach you. You sing everything. I sing totally wrong, apparently. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, no disrespect to her, but I beg to disagree.
Well, do you know what? I have been doing it since I was 17. I think you just get used to. I know, you learn certain things over the period of time when you're growing up of how to keep your voice and what you're doing. I'm just thankful I've still got it. I feel like I'm singing better than ever now. So it's but I have, the amount of miles my voice has done, my God, over the years. So, yeah, it stood the test of time, I guess, so far anyway.
Excellent. Now, do you remember when you actually realized the fact that you loved music and wanted to be a performer?
Well, funny enough, when I was in school in Gateshead, in them days, you used to have music lessons, and I don't think they have them really that much anymore. And my two sisters loved music, you know. I mean, that's how I got into the Rolling Stones and all that type of stuff, and David Bowie and everything like that. And one day we were at school, and I was only about 9 or 10, and they gave everybody a guitar. And for some reason, I was playing, and I picked it up really quick. And I picked it up really quick, and I think the first song I ever learned was "Top of Old Smoky." I met my true sweetheart. And I learned that, and I played it to my dad when I got home. And my dad was so impressed that I could play 2 or 3 chords. For some reason, I don't know why, but to this day, he got me private guitar lessons. And because I loved Ralph McTell, I loved all that folk music when I was a kid and everything like that. And for some reason, he got me guitar lessons, and that went on from me having my first guitar teacher who taught me the basics to having classical guitar lessons. So I was actually classically trained from the age of 11.
Wow.
And I don't know why he'd done it, but I mean, he used to have to drive like half an hour to this really, I mean, it would cost a lot of money back then. And the guy was trained, my guitar teacher in Gosforth was trained by Julian Bream, who's a very famous classical guitarist. So my dad just seen something in me. So that's exactly how I started playing the guitar. And then, yes, it was all through my dad, really. God bless him.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
at what point did you decide that you wanted that to be your career rather than going to college or learning a trade or joining the service?
Well, you know, when I was that age, I think when I got to about 13, 14, and discovered my sisters got me, you know, the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Mogg, all that type of stuff. And I could play all the songs and everything, and she took me to see the Who at Wembley when I was 11. And to go from Newcastle to London was a really long journey in them days. And she was only 16, and she took me down to see the Who. And there was the Who, the Stranglers, AC/DC with Bon Scott, Nils
Whoa.
Lofgren, and that changed my life really from the age of 11. You know, and I really got into and that, to pursue the music. Well, actually, what happened was in them days in Newcastle, there wasn't any work. You know, there wasn't any work, and I grew up quite quickly. I was going to like the Mayfair when I was about 12, like 13 years old, which is like the night, the very which I later wrote a song about, Mayfair, and that was the biggest club in Newcastle. So from the age of 13, I was going in there and going to see every rock band at Newcastle City Hall and everything like that. And that's what, you know, gave me the desire to get, then my dad got me an electric guitar. And I was, so what happened when I left school, I moved, I went straight into a job because we're from that type of family that you're never allowed on the dole. So my dad, I got my first job, and then I was actually in the movie business. My first job,
Really?
when I left school, I was when I moved to Los Angeles a long time ago. I always tell everybody that I was in the movie business, but what people didn't realize was it was a thing called the YOP scheme in England. And you got paid £25 when you left school to get a job. And my first job was working at the projectionists, working in the cinema. And I became a projectionist in the cinema for 25 quid a week, working from 3 p.m. till 10 p.m. So I have watched Porky's a million times, and The Wrath of Khan, and a few other films. And then I obviously left school at 16. I didn't stay on at school. I couldn't bear it. But I think I knew I just wanted to get a job. And then my dad, I was sitting in the pub, and then Gateshead, and my dad came in one day and he says, right, he says, come on, I'm taking you to London, and you're going to get a proper job, because if you stay in Newcastle, you're going to end up doing nothing with your life. And so he took us down to London at 16, and he walked me around every building site in London, until I eventually got a job.
Nice.
And I actually stayed there until that was the last time. That was when I left Newcastle, and apart from going home for things, but I never came back, and that's how I met Guy Bailey, basically.
Which leads me to my next question. Do you remember that event and how you actually met him?
I actually met him. My sister was working. She was working in a place called the Surrey Tavern, which was at the Oval Cricket Ground. You don't know cricket in America, do you? But,
I know what it is. I mean, it's.
But it was the cricket ground, and I was staying with her because she lived above the pub, and then she went, oh, there's this guy there's this bloke that comes in who loves music and all this, or whatever it was, and we got chatting. Actually, no, that's not the truth. I met him through just drinking, actually. Sorry, that was later on. And she introduced me to Guy.
Okay.
She introduced me to Guy in the Surrey Tavern when I was 16. Mm. And then what happened was he had a spare room in his flat, which overlooked the cricket ground at the Oval. And I got him a job working with me on the building sites.
Okay.
And that was when I first met Chris Johnstone.
Yes, they had gone to school together.
Chris Johnstone came down. Actually, we were talking about this the last time we seen each other, about how we first met. And he says, I'll never forget, he says, when I first met you with Guy Bailey, he said, you looked, he was like thinking, he says, I thought to myself, why is Guy hanging around with this little kid? Because I was still 16 then. Right. And he said, you look so young. He said, I'll never forget the first time I seen you. And then he said, the next time he seen me, because he just came down for a visit from Stoke. And then the next time Chris Johnstone seen me was in a rehearsal room in Brixton when we were putting the band together. Not weird.
Yeah.
So that's how long we've known each other for. That's what we were talking about the other day.
Nice.
But believe it or not, me and Guy Bailey, we worked on that. I think I worked with him for about a year, and we never even talked about music, really. It was more about drinking, playing pool, having a laugh every night. And it wasn't until my dad came down to visit me at Guy's flat, and he brought my guitar. My dad brought my guitar, and Guy went, can you play the guitar? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I'll play the guitar as well. And then we got talking about it, and we loved Chuck Berry, we loved the Stones, we had everything in common. And because he never had a guitar in his apartment.
Yeah.
How strange was that,
Yeah. Kind of sounds like your dad was kind of the power behind the throne in a way, the person who.
Michaela, he definitely was. He was like, because you could watch I've told the story many a time, so maybe people are bored of it, but it was the God's honest truth. My dad came down because he could watch the cricket out of the window. Yeah. Out of Guy's flat, you could watch the cricket. He had a perfect view. And when he brought that guitar down, me and Guy started writing songs together on the couch while my dad was watching the cricket. And we wrote like Roses and Rings. We wrote a song called How Do You Feel? Stop Right There. A couple of others. And then we actually wrote, I think within the next week, I Don't Love You Anymore. it was, and my dad turned around and he went, "You know what?" He says, "You two should start a band." You know, and that's how it
Awesome.
all came about, really.
Nice. And
Yeah,
I doubly love that
it's
story.
so bizarre, isn't it? It
I'm
is
sorry, what was
bizarre
that?
how it happened. It is bizarre how it happened.
It really is. And I kind
Yeah,
of
you
doubly
can't really
love
make
that
it up.
story. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah. But, but anyway, yeah, beautiful story. And by the way, Roses and Rings is probably my favorite song that you guys ever wrote together.
Thank you. It was one of the first ones as well.
Mhm.
That was when my dad was sitting there. Guy actually played that. That's how it all started.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm wrong, and I know we fight, baby, one day. And then we used to bounce off each other, writing the lyrics and swap chords, and it all came together really quickly.
Nice.
So
And you wrote them
wasn't
about.
handy. I had a guitar there. Tyler sent me this guitar. Isn't it lovely?
Awesome. Yeah, I think I've actually seen that in a couple of pictures before.
Yeah, he sent us it just after lockdown, which is lovely of him. Yeah.
Nice. And so once you and Guy Bailey actually knew that you loved music and that you could write together, did you automatically feel a great chemistry with him as a songwriter?
Definitely, because originally I wasn't going to be the singer. I'd never sang properly. I mean, I'd sang quietly and stuff like, obviously when we were writing the songs, and we were going to look for a singer. And then we got Tom, his friend from Stoke down. Chris Johnstone came down to play bass, and then Bill Coyne was on the drums, and we booked a rehearsal room in. It was like Brixton. It was like, like for kids, and like a Brixton community centre.
Mhm.
And I think it was about 75 pence an hour or something. And then on the first rehearsal, when we were going through the songs, what the guitar I was playing at the time, I broke all the strings on it. And well, I broke the majority of the strings. And Guy went, "Well, look, there's a mic there. Why don't you?" He says, "You've been singing them in the flat. Why don't you have a go singing?" And I'd never sang through a mic before. And then all of a sudden, that voice came out.
Yeah,
Believe it or
exactly.
not. And then he was like, "Right, you're the singer."
Yeah. And one thing I said to Nigel Mogg when I interviewed him was it was kind of funny looking back when I was researching that interview at some of your older interviews because you seemed like a very shy, contained, introverted person. But then when you came on stage, it was this, your voice is like a
Yeah.
lion's roar. It was so cool to watch.
And yeah, well, the thing is, I still am. I still get very nervous before playing everything, but I'm like, it's like it's another, that's one thing that I had to learn in all them years is playing, from the first show that we done our first show we done was in a cellar at Bill Coyne's house. And I remember being terrified, but then once I found out, once you take them few steps and just get up in front of the mic,
Mhm.
and then you become Jonathan Gray becomes Spike.
Yeah.
And
You know,
it's
that,
Spike can't be allowed out all the time. Spike
yeah.
nearly ruined my life.
Wow. Hey, that actually leads to my next question. Where did the nickname Spike come from? Do you
On
remember?
the building site. On the building site.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I was always called Geordie.
right.
When you work in London, everybody thought I was Irish. It's very similar, and there's a Newcastle in Ireland as well. So a lot of people thought I was Irish.
Okay. Do
It's
you
it's a
remember
nickname.
do you
Sorry.
remember like the context of them calling you Spike? Was it because like you were using a spike or something like that?
No, but I had really long hair and I cut it all off. It was really spiky. Instead of somebody calling us Geordie all the time, they went, "Oh, they went, they were taking the piss out of me," and then they sort of calling us Spike, and then it just stuck. And it was better. It was better than being called Geordie all the time because there was a lot of people called Geordie, and Spike just stuck. But I have said other things about how I got my name before, which was a bit rude, but I'm not. That was all in my younger days. But that's actually how I got Spike.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got the inside story.
Yeah, you have really. Yeah. I was on the. I mean, we worked at a place called St James's Army Barracks, which is opposite Buckingham Palace, and we worked there for quite a long time. That was putting, and then between that was when we were putting the band together and decided how we were going to dress, how we were going to do it, how we were going to look, you know, the whole thing. And that's how we started the whole thing of like, right, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to. But we did dress quite the same anyway. It was like, because in London at that point, when it was a lot cheaper to buy like a pinstripe jacket or a pinstripe suit, you could buy them for like, 50 pence or something. And it was like, the gypsy thing, or that step-toe son look, if you like. That and that became, waistcoat and a shirt. That became our look, really.
Nice. It kind of sounds
so
like
that was the major thing. And to look smart, you put a carnation in.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how the carnation came around. There's a famous guy called Dick Emery here, and he does a tramp, but he always wears a carnation or whatever. And that's a guy from the 70s. And we were basically a cross between that and Steptoe Son, and just like how a lot of people in the 60s and 70s used to dress like that.
Nice.
And it was a very cheap way of looking smart, but looking like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it was grunge London style.
Yeah, it was. Well, a lot of what happened was with the Quireboys in the end. I mean, everybody used to come to the gig, and the gigs, and they still do now with the pinstripe jackets on, the waistcoat, and the carnation. That was our look. That's why I still use the carnation to this day.
And it looks adorable. It's your signature look.
I know. I throw one out every night.
Aww.
I wear one every night. No matter what I've been done, I always wear carnation.
Nice.
So there must be millions of my carnations everywhere, all over the world. Yeah.
I bet if I put out a message about it on the Quireboys Facebook page, a bunch of girls would put in selfies with holding their carnations that they've gotten from you.
You know what? There's a lot of them. I mean, I throw one out, all the time. I mean, I stopped wearing real ones because a lot of people had pressed them and stuff like that, which was nice. And so we've used the carnation as a logo and stuff like that a lot of the time. Nice. Yeah. Cool. And with Q, because originally it wasn't the original name. I think everybody knows this, but the original name was, we were going to call ourselves the Quireboys with a C. And then when we were working on the building sites, this Irish guy went, because we went out the night before and we had eyeliner on, we all smudged, and we were just wearing what we wore the night before. And this Irish guy goes, are you guys doing a band? And it was like, yeah, we're in a band. What's it called? And we were like, oh, it's called the Quireboys. And this guy went, he says, well, that fucker in the band, it should be called the bloody Quireboys, never mind the Quireboys. So hence the Quireboys started. So we thought, what a great name, Quireboys. Yeah. That's how we start. We were the Quireboys for years. But we used to get banned from everywhere. So and then when it all became really serious, and it was obvious that we had to change the name because we got banned from all the universities, or there were protests in the universities, and there was a lot of protests from the community about us being called the Quireboys. And obviously, as Lemmy said, you'll never get on top of the pops called the Quireboys. And guys, so we thought, and guys, we'd stencil something, Quireboys, on the case. And I don't know if it was, I think it was Guy or Nigel that said, keep the Q and then put the U and then change it, and it's the Quireboys. So that's what we done. But we played the Dominion. I think we played the Dominion Theatre. We used to sell out the marquee. club in London all the time is the Quireboys. We were the Quireboys for years, and but we had to change it in the end. So
Yeah.
I thought
I
the
mean,
Quireboys brilliant name.
yeah, I mean,
My
I think
dad
that
didn't
it's
like it.
yeah, I mean, I think that it's a funny, cool name. I mean, I can understand why in that time period it might have closed certain doors for you, but we'll never know.
Yeah,
It worked
well,
out
it was
for
just once you made your deal, you couldn't be called. I mean, there was a group in New York called the Queers, the
That's right.
punk rock group. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you never know. I might bring the name back one day.
There you go. Yeah, you could be the Quireboys now.
I am. Yeah, I am a queer boy. I'll always be a queer boy.
There you go. Alrighty, so tell me about the first time that you met Nigel Mogg.
Oh, well, we we done about 3 or 4 shows with Chris Johnstone playing the bass.
Mhm.
Right? 'Cause what in them days, what we used to have to do was we had somebody had a Fostex machine, and we recorded 4 songs really quick on this little machine, like a 4-track machine, and we
Mhm.
made a cassette, which we thought was brilliant. And we used to take it around all the clubs in London, and Chris Johnston's a brilliant bass player. But what Guy Bailey was saying, he was like, it'd be great. We should have a piano player. And then one rehearsal, when we were playing, and he went, Chris can play the piano. Chris Johnstone can play the piano. And Chris Johnstone went, no, I can't play the piano. And he went, yes, you can. You can play 3 chords, and you can go ding, 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 like that, right? And then we used to hang out at Dingwalls. We used to go to we'd always be in the Embassy Club in London. We'd hang out all the rock places.
Mhm.
And I bumped into Nigel Mogg, I think it was in Dingwalls, and he was in a band called Faster Pussycat, Kill, 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 right?
Yep.
And I'd seen him play, and I'd seen him around town, and he looked like a choir boy straight away.
Mhm.
And one day, so I'd been like asking him all the time. I says, hey, do you know what? You should come down and rehearse with my band. And because we need a bass player. So we'd only done, I think, 2 shows. And then Nigel came in, and he was straight in like that. It just all clicked straight away. It's funny, like 4 really shit musicians and a shit singer get together, and then this magic happened. You know what I mean? I mean, you straight away.
Mhm.
So it was really good. That's what we actually played Reading Festival with just me, Chris. I think Cozy was on the drums then. Nigel, and so it was a 5. It was never a 6-piece. It was a 5-piece for a long, long time. Yeah.
Yep, right up till the
So we done
recording.
Reading Festival. We done lots of shows. As that was the Quireboys. We played. I mean, we were in the back of a van for years, up and down that motorway. And you know what? Going back to my father, God bless him, because he would turn up with food for us, with drinks, and when we were making nothing, he was there all the way for us. As were all of our parents at that time, which they obviously seen something in us as well. So that was lovely,
Yeah.
But it took a long time. It took at least 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And the
Well,
back
that's
of
a
the
wonderful father, I've
van,
got to
sleeping
say.
on amps. Sorry?
I was just saying you had an absolutely wonderful father, it sounds like.
We all did. We all had wonderful parents. I mean, we all of our parents became a family as well, Everybody helped.
Mhm.
Everybody helped, including Phil Mogg, who was Nigel's uncle, who's the singer in UFO.
Yes.
He was a major part of helping us as well.
Yeah. And tell me about when Ginger Wildheart joined the band.
Well, actually, funny enough, speaking about um, Phil Mogg, we were when Phil Mogg came to help us. He was a. We didn't have any equipment. We were broke, everything like that. And Phil had came to a few rehearsals, and he really liked what we were doing. Phil Mogg actually put us in the studio with the Youngs, you know, from AC/DC in Birmingham, and we done our first demos. And then he went, you know what? He says, I think you should have another guitarist to boost the, you know, obviously with Phil being more rock than what we are. He wanted another. He said, try another guitarist out. And I'd known Ginger because I had a club in London called Butts and Spikes Club in Soho at Gossips. And we used to do, it was a rock club, the only rock club in London, actually, at the time. And Ginger was in a band called, he was playing with the group Becky Bondage. And I bumped into Ginger, and with him being from Newcastle as well, we got on instantly. And I invited him down for a rehearsal, and he fitted in straight away. So that's how, you know, Ginger became part of the Quireboys.
Yeah, and he recorded Mayfair with you,
sorry,
right?
I'm sorry, Becky Bondage, for nicking him off you.
Well,
yeah, we had some wonderful times, you know. We had some great times with Ginger as well.
Yeah, and I like some of your work from that lineup. Wasn't he? Didn't he record Mayfair with you guys?
He did Mayfair. How You Feel? He done a lot. He done a lot of the songs, you know. He done a lot of the first. Actually, on YouTube, I seen something the other day. I couldn't believe it. It was us live in, I think, Liverpool or somewhere, and somebody got a camcorder and they filmed the whole show. It was really bizarre watching it. Somebody sent it to me. I don't know where it is. On it's like it was a gig before. I think just before we got signed. So yeah, but Ginger's in the back. Wow. Yeah.
I'm really grateful to all the people who filmed those early shows. I mean, we have very little footage, and you know, it's great that they were able to preserve that for your history.
You know what? It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I was shocked when I seen it, but we were on fire on that gig. It was really good to watch. You know, it's weird watching yourself when you. It was like watching my son on stage or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's that young. But the funniest thing is, we're still wearing the same bloody clothes.
Hey, it's good that some things never change, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, I was actually going to ask you about one particular gig that I think a lot of us kind of know about in your history. You opened for Guns N' Roses one time on, I believe, the tour they were doing for Appetite for Destruction when they went around England. Do you remember that?
Of course, yeah, but I remember vividly because what happened, we'd sold out the Dominion Theatre, which is a huge venue in London. We'd done so many nights in the Marquee. We used to do like a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the Marquee, or 3 nights at the Marquee would be, but we'd also play all over the country. And we were like, at one point, we were going, how much more do we have to do? Because you got to remember, we'd been playing for about 5 years or something at that point. And it was like, and we were just at the point basically of nearly packing in, because it was just like, is this, even though we had a huge following, we couldn't get a record deal or anything. And then I remember I'm talking about a different one there. Phil Mogg came down later on. The first time with Guns N' Roses, was they came over to play the Marquee Club, didn't they? That's what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, the first time they played the Marquee. Is that you're not talking about Hammersmith Odeon?
The Marquee.
The Marquee, yeah. So the first time they came over, they played the night before us.
Right.
Guns N' Roses came to town, and they were playing. Don't know what day of the week it was, but I think we played the night before or the night after them. We were headlining the Marquee, and I went down, and Bush Telfer was who was the manager of the Marquee, who was a major part of the Quireboys. I mean, a huge part. If it hadn't been for Bush, we wouldn't have done anything. And I went down to see him. And he says, "Come over." He says, "There's this band here from America." He says, you gotta hear them, you know. And I was like, all right. So that I was in the Marquee every day, you know. At one point, that used to be where we all hung out, and I was there for sound check when they were playing. And I remember the first song I heard them play was was at the sound check for Whole Lot of Rosie.
Oh.
And then, yeah, they played Whole Lot of Rosie, and then we all met with each other. And we all got on straight away. We went down the Intrepid Fox for a drink. And we all got on like a house on fire. And they came to our show, I think the next night or whatever it was. And then we all hung out. And then they stole all of our girlfriends, which was nice of them, because they were American. We got them back at the end. And then so we all got on really well. That was the first time I can't even remember what year that was. It was 86 or 7, something like that. 87?
I think 87. Like yeah. So I had mixed up the shows because I know that you opened for them at the Hammersmith Odeon, but they
so this is after that. That's what I was getting on to earlier, because we were like going, oh, we're doing all this. Should we even bother continuing, because we couldn't even get a record deal or anything? And then Phil Mogg came down. He says, well, don't pack in yet. He says, I've got you on the bill with Guns N' Roses' Faster Pussycat at Hammersmith Odeon.
Wow.
And then so we opened up for the three of them. But it was so funny because, I mean, you got to remember at that point, Guns N' Roses didn't even know if they could sell out Hammersmith Odeon. They weren't that, and so we opened up. But I remember Phil Mogg was wonderful at, because what he done was to make us look really professional. He got all of UFO's crew down, right? He gave us all of UFO's equipment. Everything came in on like trolleys and all this type of stuff, and we looked really professional. I remember Duff and Duff going to me. He says, man, you guys are so professional, unbelievable. And we were like, oh, little do they know we have fuck all. That was all Phil Mogg right there. And that's how I first met Tammy, and we all got on like a house on fire. It was great.
Ah, nice.
Great, yeah.
And
Tammy lent me, I'll never forget, I was saying to Tammy, because he lent me, I'd never used a radio mic before, and he lent me his radio mic.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
For some reason, I couldn't use a lead off, or something happened, and he lent me his radio mic, and I was like, hey, there's lipstick all over this. And yes, we all got on really well. That's how that all came about. I think we were probably the only rock and roll, but like a rock and roll band or whatever at that time anyway.
Yeah. Going
around, there's Dogs D'Amour, us. There's a few others, but
yeah,
it was all kicking off.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I'm curious about is why it took you guys so long to get a record deal. I mean, your early recordings are wonderful. Like, what was the holdup?
Well, probably being called the Quireboys.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
The first song what happened? We got a deal with a company called Sanctuary. Not Sanctuary. That was it. Survival. And they done Mayfair. That first single, Mayfair, and I think I can't remember what's on the B-sides. I think it's How Do You Feel or something. But we had a following all over the country, and when all that kicked off after Guns N' Roses came, I mean, that was a massive part for us when we played with Guns N' Roses, And there was a magazine called Kerrang at the time, and they really supported us and put us on. I mean, there's not many. I don't think people would do it today, but I mean, we were an unsigned band, and they put us on the front cover of Kerrang, wow, which was amazing for us, because we had a really good following. And but then how that all came about was, it went to like, I think #1 on the indie charts.
Nice.
Okay, Mayfair. But it could have actually been the first independent song to get in the top 20 or something like that. And something happened, and we didn't realize that they had, they were like a subsidiary of EMI.
Oh, okay.
And what happened? And so I remember EMI. There was a clause in the contract that said that EMI could pick us up out of the Survival deal at any point And I remember, and me and Guy, I remember being at home, and Guy was at home, and we all got a letter one day saying that EMI had picked up our option for £1. So that's how we got signed to. That was how we got signed to EMI. But at that point, we had a lot of managers after us. There was people flying in from America and everywhere, and then that's how we met Sharon Osbourne, because and she was English. She only had Aussie, and at the time, and maybe Lita Ford, I think, yeah. And she was English, and we got on so well, and she renegotiated the deal. Obviously, not for £1 anymore. You know, I mean, I didn't even know you could renegotiate a deal. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. So she was the kind of the.
It was a long learning curve of everything, you know.
You know, one thing that I wanted to talk with you about is how Ginger wound up leaving the band.
How he wound up leaving the band.
Yeah, why did Ginger leave? Why did Ginger leave the band? I mean, you guys sounded great with him.
Yeah. At that point, Ginger is only like he's about a year older than me. We were all very young, right? And then we went on our first trip to Los Angeles. And of course, going into LA, I think it was like 1988, 89, it must have been 88, I think. And it was at the height of that, everything was kicking off, wasn't it? For Guns N' Roses, for everything like that. And we went and the Capitol Records flew us out. And then on the way back, there was a lot of things happened. I mean, Ginger always had a million songs. He always had loads of songs, right? But the rule was, from when we started the band, that me and Guy Bailey wrote all the songs.
Okay.
And Ginger wouldn't have got he would never have got his foot in the door to write any songs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And us being kids and just living the high life, and doing things. I mean, we never believed that we would get that far or do anything that we did, and it was only right that he went his own way and got his. We give him, we set him up good to do the Wildhearts and everything like that, and he's done so brilliant that I think it's wonderful what he's done. He wouldn't have lasted a long time in the Quireboys. We didn't really want a second guitarist, to tell you the truth, as well, But we always wanted one guitar, but then it just didn't work. It's just one of them things. There's no bad feelings at all,
Yeah, and like you pointed out, he's done really well for himself, so it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, well, great,
Alrighty, so let's go through a track by track of A Bit of What You Fancy. By the way, I have a copy of it, and it's autographed by all the originals.
Oh, wow.
Every one of you.
An album.
Yeah, exactly, and it's got all of your autographs on it.
Wow.
Yep, including Guy Bailey. That's his autograph right there. So
right. I bet you Nigel Mogg's autograph is me doing it, because I used to do his autographs.
Oh my gosh. Is that true?
I'm kidding.
You know what? Most of the Beatles autographs from early Beatlemania are actually fake for the same reason. They would have their managers go through and sign a bunch of the pictures. So if you want to sell a Beatles autograph now, like, you have to be very careful with the research and make sure it's real and that it's certified or authenticated, excuse me, because most of the originals were actually fake.
I heard about something like that. It's funny because when I done my solo album and Tyler done me a logo, and he done my signature, but he done my signature so good. He done my actual signature, but he changed it a bit and done it so good. So I've been practicing how he done it now. For my logo, I changed my signature.
You crazy kids! My goodness. Alrighty, so back to your masterpiece. Alrighty, so tell me about writing and recording 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. What? 7 o'clock never ever had a chorus in all the years that we played it, until we went, and it was one of the first songs we ever wrote. until we went into rehearsals with Jim Cregan and George Tutko. We were in
Mhm.
rehearsals for the album, and Jim said, "Do you know what?" He says, "That song's brilliant, but if you could, if that had a chorus, it would be, it would just stand out so much more." And he went, "Could you think of a chorus?" And when we were, I had the guitar, and I think it was like, and I was like, I said, "Do you mean like it's 7 o'clock, time for a party?" And he went, "Brilliant, let's do that." And that's how it came about.
Yeah. Sounds like he was
And
a
oh,
wonderful
what I want to
producer.
see. That's exactly how it came about in 2 seconds
Nice.
in the
Alrighty,
rehearsal
so
room. And then and everybody went, "Great," you know. I think the only person who didn't like it was Guy Bailey.
really?
Yeah, he didn't. He liked everything so simple,
Hmm.
but then it became a staple. You know, that was how. But that's how it was. If it hadn't been for Jim Cregan, it wouldn't have had a chorus.
Hmm. It sounded
So
like
that's
you wanted.
one good thing about having a great producer like Jim. He came in, and Jim's been helping me lately on the new Quireboys album, and he's came up with some great ideas. You know, just tweaking things here and there. It's really good. It's always good to have a good pair of ears, and Jim has written some of the most classic songs of all time. You know, and so that's why I like working with him all the time.
Excellent.
So
Yeah,
yeah, if it hadn't been for Jim, there wouldn't have been a chorus on that song.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. I love the chorus on that.
Mm. Yeah.
Alrighty, so the next one is Man on the Loose.
Man on the Loose was written on in the back of a van, and I came up with, oh, and then Guy changed it, and then we just went, "There's a man on the loose, don't look too good." That's how that was done.
Yeah.
On one of our many journeys in the back of a transit van, and that was the first time that I think we used backing singers on that as well, which was amazing, by the Water Sisters. And yeah, it's still a staple to this day. Man on the Loose. All of the songs are really,
Mhm.
you know.
I love hearing about your songwriting chemistry with Guy Bailey. It sounds very John and Paul, you know?
It was, and the one thing that we'd done, I mean, that was probably the only, we never usually wrote in the third person. It was always like about ourselves or something like that. So that was the one that was written like as a story about, you know, they're going to shoot you, they're going to, you know, whatever it was. It was about
Yeah.
drinking really in a bar and all that as usual.
Hmm.
But yeah, all done very quickly.
Yeah. And it worked out.
Yeah.
It's a great song. Alrighty, so Whippin' Boy.
Whipping Boy, when we were due to fly out to do the album, uh, we were about to fly out to Los Angeles, and Sharon had give us Ozzy's home recording studio. But in them days, the home recording studio was the size of a sofa. You know what
Oh.
I mean? And my good friend Willie Dowland set it up for me in my flat in London, and we got asked to write 2 songs. We got asked to write one for Alice Cooper and one for Tina Turner.
Oh.
Right?
Mhm.
And so that night, the night before we left to go to LA, actually my dad was there as well. There was me, my dad, there was me, Willie Dowland, and Guy Bailey. And Willie had got the studio working, and he'd set off a drum machine, and that was the song that we'd actually written for Tina Turner. So that's how that came about.
Wow.
That was actually going to be a song for Tina Turner, and then when Sharon heard it, she went, "I'm not giving it to Tina Turner. You guys should do this. This is brilliant."
Yeah,
So
it
that's
is.
how that whole song came about. Yeah, it was done, and then we flew to Los Angeles the next day
Nice.
to do the record. So that's what came out, and then the song we done for Alice Cooper was called "I Like It," but obviously he didn't, or he would have done it.
Ah.
Yeah, so Whipping Boy was, you know, I wish to God Tina Turner had done it now.
I wish she had too. That would have been a cool
I
song
know.
for her.
Probably wouldn't get played now on the radio, would it? I think by the lyrics, we don't really write about, I'd never even been to the deep south. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I know what you mean.
So,
And the Rolling
yeah,
Stones were actually forced to take the song "Brown Sugar" out of their sets when they play in America now as well.
I've heard that as well. Yeah, I've had to change lyrics on the new album.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, it just shocks me. The world is going mental.
Yeah, I mean, I wish people didn't have that attitude towards art, and I genuinely
I
love the
know.
song "Brown Sugar." I understand why.
Well, I always thought it was about heroin when I was a kid. I never realized it was about. We were speaking about this the other day, and brown sugar used to be heroin, and I was like thinking, well, why? I don't know. Do you know what? Everybody, it's like with my song, when the songs that I've written and stuff like that, everybody has another meaning to what they actually mean, to what is in my head, and I'll let everybody decide what the songs are about. You
Yeah.
know,
hmm It's
but
kind of the bargain that you make when you're an artist.
I know, I think it upsets people when you say actually the song's not about that. It's a bit like, you know, um, Nothing Compares to You by Prince. I was playing that song. I put that on my new on the Spike's Late Night Songbook 2 that I'd done
Nice.
because of the story about my mom picked the songs. It's a long story, but I know that Nothing Compares to You because I met Prince. I've had the honor of meeting Prince, and he told me
Oh,
it's a long story, trust me. But he told me that song was about him giving up smoking.
really?
Yeah, it's not about living his life apparently, but that's what he told me. I'll tell you the story about Prince some other time. And Sinead O'Connor,
Okay.
God bless her.
Okay. You've probably already heard this, but Chris Cornell actually did a beautiful version of "Nothing Compares to You" as
No,
well.
honest, I've never heard that. I'll look that up. Really?
Well, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it's great. Look it up. You'll probably love it.
I'll look it up. Okay, it's on my new album, but that's sold out. It was like it's it was a numbered and signed CD that I've released just last month.
Oh, cool.
With just me on the acoustic guitar. Spike's Late Night Songbook 2.
Mm. I actually really love your live version of "House of the Rising Sun," by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's a good Geordie band.
hmm
The Animals. So they're from Newcastle as well. Eric Burden and
Awesome.
everyone.
All
Charles
right.
Chandler managed Jimi Hendrix and Slade, the bass player from The Animals. Did you know that?
I actually really like the Animals, and Courtney Love
Yeah.
is another person who did a great version of "House of the Rising Sun." Have you ever heard
Well,
hers?
no, I haven't. But on a blues album that I done once that hasn't been released yet, I done the original version, which is Woody Guthrie, and
Oh,
it's got 27 verses. But I didn't do the 27 verses. Did you know that's a really old Woody Guthrie song? It's got like
oh,
I think it's about 20 something verses.
I didn't know that. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
check it out.
Gosh.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll have to go and find that now. 27. All right.
a lot of, but it might be 22. I don't know. A lot.
I'm intrigued
There's a
though.
lot
I'll
of
go
verses.
find that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so the next song on A Bit of What You Fancy is "Sex Party."
Oh, the classic Sex Party. Yeah, that was originally written, and it was called Gun Party.
Gum
Believe it or
Party?
not, Gun Party.
Gun Party. Okay.
And then I don't know what happened, but someday I decided to change it to Sex Party. Actually, Phil Lewis is on that. He's singing
Really?
in the background on the chorus. He came down that day, and a
That's
few
so
other
cool.
friends and girlfriends. And there's a group of everybody singing on that. Yeah, you can hear Phil in the background
Nice.
singing "Sex Party." So it's all his fault. Maybe he wants publishing off me.
I can see Phil being behind that. He's got a very naughty sense of humor.
Yeah. But no, we changed it when we were doing it live to Sex Party a long time before that. But originally it was written as Gun Party.
Okay. I
So,
adore Phil, by the way. He's a great guy.
Isn't he lovely?
Yep, and he's
I've
so
known Phil
funny.
since I've known Phil. Me and Phil used to drink in the Embassy Club in London. The first time I think I met him when he was in Girl, when I was about 14 or something, 14 or 15. We were sporting UFO.
Yeah.
And then years later, I met him in the Embassy Club when he was playing, and then we supported him when he was playing with Bernie Tormey. And that's how I met Chris Heilman, who plays with me on my acoustic shows, and he's playing with me all the time now. Chris Heilman on the acoustic gigs.
Nice. So you got two friendships for the ages out of that.
Yeah, Sex Part, just another simple 4-chord song.
Yeah, and it works. It's rocking.
Yeah, so it's a bit silly singing it at our age now, though, isn't it? I haven't been to a sex party for a long time.
Well, I mean, classic never dies.
Sounds like too much. Sounds a bit too much of a messy business now, doesn't it?
I don't know, but no comments. Alrighty. So, and the next one I absolutely love, Sweet Marianne.
Sweet Marianne was written actually around the time that my father was around, and that I was telling you earlier. It was actually a letter. My sister was she was living away. In them days, you used to have to write letters to everybody, not emails or texts.
Yeah.
And I used to write out. She was going to be a nurse. She was trained to be a nurse, and I used to write her letters. And so originally it was going to be Julia Ann.
Oh.
Because that's her real name, and I didn't have the nerve to call it Julia Ann. So it's actually a thank you to my big sis.
Aww.
Yeah, my big sister.
It's beautiful.
And I've done one for my other sister as well, Angie. But that's on the new album. So they both got a song about them. So when I play in Newcastle, I get when she's there at the gigs, I get the whole audience to sing, instead of Marianne, I get them to sing Julia Ann now. For her. So if he doesn't actual words, it's a thank you song, basically. Yeah.
I'm sure she absolutely loves that. You're a good brother.
Yeah, she gets very embarrassed about it.
Oh. Alrighty.
But I've got two wonderful sisters. Without them, I don't know what I would have done.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sweet. Now you're gonna make me cry.
Well, it's good having a nice family, isn't it?
Oh. You know? Good. Alrighty. So next up, I Don't Love You Anymore.
I Don't Love You Anymore was written at the same time. Around the same time as when we were living at the Oval. The guy came up with the chorus of "I don't love you," and this is how we used to do stuff. We'd just work off each other, and when we wrote it, we didn't think anybody would like it really. And then everybody kept saying, when we started playing it, everybody said, "You should really do that song. It's really, really good." But none of us had experienced, when I say I just wanted a table set for 3, none of us had experienced that in life. None of us had had kids at that point. None of us had been through all that. And it was basically just, and then all of a sudden, that song seemed to come true years later.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the other songs that we wrote, I guess. But it was funny how you're looking at that video and everything like that, and it's like, oh my God, that's actually happened to me now. It was quite strange, We weren't old. I wasn't old enough to really understand. Or Guy was at that point, but we just knew it was a good song, and a lot of other people did as well. So it was like, yeah, all the songs that me and Guy used to do. It was quite strange how we used to write. He'd start off with something, or I'd start off with something, and then we'd agree. We never really went over the 10-minute rule. You
Mm,
know, I know that Frankie Miller used to do the same thing. I know that Terry Reid does it. There's a lot of people do that, and it's like if it's not working within 10 or 15 minutes, and you can't remember it, don't do it. And it just seemed like that was another instant song, you know.
nice.
I
And
think
do you
with Cregan put in the key change at the end that we done when we were doing I Don't Love You Anymore, if I'm right. He said let's take it up a notch or whatever. Or am I
nice.
thinking of a different? No, it doesn't go to a key. I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, that song was done. Sorry. Yeah.
So now when you perform it and having gone through a similar experience, like you said, do you feel like it takes on new meaning for you? I mean, do you put more of yourself and your own experience into it when you perform it now?
It's hard to sing that line. I say my prayers every night, but even God don't care less. Yeah, definitely, because you're thinking about what the hell's happened in your life. It is very hard to get through that sometimes. I couldn't get through it when Guy died. I played it in Scotland and broke down. I couldn't get through it because I was just imagining. I was just imagining sitting there with him and how we wrote it. And when I was playing it, I was trying to get him out of my head, and I couldn't get him out of my head. And when I came to that line, I say my prayers every night. It just killed me. So I couldn't actually get through it. But the audience in Glasgow were wonderful that night and sang it for me instead and carried on. It was absolutely wonderful of them. So yeah, it's still hard to want to do that. You know,
Well,
I try not to play it if I can help it. When I wrote the third verse, the second verse, and you know, my whole life's been up and down, always seems in a mess. I say my prayers every night, but even God don't care less. It seems to be more relevant now than ever, you know.
Spike,
But then,
Spike, I think you're
yeah,
doing all right. I mean,
yeah,
people make mistakes, but I think you seem like a pretty great guy.
I haven't made any mistakes. I think it's just life, isn't it? But anyway, I was so pleased that Guy Bailey, Guy Bailey was godfather to my son as well,
Aw,
and now I'm a granddad, which is amazing. So
awesome.
he'll be loving that.
Nice. And you can talk more. And I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about that as soon as we get through a bit of what you fancy.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. So next up we have Hey You.
Hey You was a song that we never really liked,
Aw,
but it was too catchy, I think. But it was like the other person who helped with that was Jim Cregan,
hmm,
because we used to play it, and if you notice on it, just simple things what Jim Cregan done for that when we wrote it didn't have. If you notice on the verses, Jenny was a shit, and then it goes up. We'd never done this before, where it actually does like a little key change into the chorus and picks
oh,
up, and that was his idea, and that brought that song to life, and that
nice.
made it a hit. It was one of our biggest hits ever. So thanks, Jim, for helping us on that. But that's what a great producer does,
Hmm.
you know.
Exactly. It sounds like he really wanted to make it a much more commercial
Yeah.
and academic.
Jim Cregan also done the most amazing thing, I've got to tell you. When we were doing that record in Cherokee Studios, when we were first playing, and we didn't have Cozy, we'd got Ian Wallace in the band, and it was like Ian Wallace had played with everybody from he played with Traveling Wilburys, the Eagles. I mean, Don Henley, sorry, loads of people.
Yeah.
And what a brilliant drummer he was. He took us to a different level as a drummer.
Mhm.
And one day, so we were putting everything down live usually for the drums and the bass, at least to keep them. And then there was a lot of overdubs done after we were usually in the Rainbow, to tell you the truth. And Jim sorted out the overdubs because we
Okay.
couldn't be asked to come down. And but Jim done the best thing one day. We were like just exhausted, and we were playing. We'd had a really heavy night, and I think it was 7 o'clock we were playing, and it was just like, come on, lads, just, come on, get it. Then what Jim done was he got like 5 of the top models in the world, right? And they all came in the mix, like with the control room.
Yeah. Do you
And there
remember the
was like
model's name?
5. If I ever produced an album, I would do this, with young lads, right? These 5 girls walked in the control room, and then all of a sudden, we were, hey, right? We were like, woohoo! It's 7 o'clock, right? And that was the take he used.
My goodness.
What a brilliant idea, because then you got somebody to perform to, and these women were beautiful. So it was like, what a great idea, Jim. That was
No
another thing
kidding.
about being a great producer. The Jim,
So
yeah,
do
he
you
brought in these like 5 beautiful models, and they were just stunning, and we were like, oh my god! And then we all showed off and got the brilliant take.
did the models reward
Yeah.
you afterwards?
Oh yes, that's another story. Hey, we were young and English.
Hey, no judging. No
I think
judging
we
here.
were the only English band in town in Hollywood at that time.
Yeah. Well, you and Phil Lewis and LA Guns, so
Yes, well, Phil, yeah.
yeah.
But I think Phil had enough share of the women, didn't he? At
I'm
that
sure he
time.
did. Yeah. He probably said, yeah, they can have them.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, do you remember who any of the models were? Like, do you know any of their names?
Joanne Russell,
Joanne Russell?
she's a very famous model. There's a lot of them.
Okay.
They weren't porn stars; they were proper models. It wasn't
course.
Melissa Mount, the Tiffany Towers, or anybody. They were really, top-notch models at the time.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned their name.
It's okay. I mean, they agreed to do that and come in and see you, so I mean, it's on the record.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because I know a couple of people who have modeled back then. Do you remember if Bobby Brown was one of them?
Of course, yes. But I'm talking about really. I mean, like Paulina and all. There was a lot of. I think it was just before they all became, ultra famous models and stuff like that. But they were hugely famous at the time. I remember. But
Alrighty,
I better
cool.
not mention all of the names, dear.
Okay.
Or maybe they sang on Sex Party. I can't remember.
There you go. They'd probably be happy if you mentioned that. So
Yeah, I don't think their husbands will be. Or their kids. They're probably all grandparents now as well.
There you go. And hey, it was the 80s and 90s. Just
Yeah.
what happens that no one judges.
Yeah.
Alrighty, cool. So the next one would be Misled.
Misled had been a standard song from day one, and the Quireboys. And I mean, I never, believe it or not, I never ever owned a Faces album.
Really?
And I was Rod Stewart was like, we're sailing, Maggie May. I'd heard all the hits, but my band was always the Stones. Guy had liked the Faces and stuff like that, and I knew. And later on, I found out that it was very similar to a Faces song. And then Rod Stewart came into the studio to listen, and I remember when it got to that song, I was panicking a bit, thinking, "Oh my God, he's gonna rip me apart here, or he's gonna, because it sounds very similar to a Faces song."
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and he went, "Don't worry, we pinched it off Bob Seger." So I was like, "All right, so you rock and roll's all."
Yeah.
And that
it's a Rolling
everybody
Stone.
takes something from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know it was Guy had came up with that melody and of Misled, and I'd written the words and whatever, but it was very similar to a Faces song. But Rod, he's like, "Don't worry, we nicked it off." I think it was Bob Seger, you said anyway. But yeah, Misled has been around. A lot of the songs the main guy. We used to start off with the titles, or start off with. That's what actually on the new album. That's very similar to how they're written. How we wrote on the first album, and on the second, there's a lot that starts off with the titles and doesn't have such the chorus as per se, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Alrighty, so the next one is a long time coming.
Long time coming, had been around for a long time. And we didn't have the intro. We'd never had the intro, which was basically, like an homage to the Hoople and all them bands and stuff like that. That's where we got a lot of, and Cregan was, obviously he'd been in a band with, he'd been in Cockney Rebel, and we were all really into the baps and all the backing vocals and stuff like that, there's a lot on the new album as well.
Oh, cool.
And so that's I think that it took me a while. I hadn't written. We'd been playing that song forever, and I'd just been making words up on the spot every night. Every night we'd be playing. I'd sing a different verse every night and what have you. But we had the chorus. So then one day I had to write it. I think I wrote it before and went in to sing it. It was one of the later songs that we wrote.
Nice.
And a lot of people, especially in America, love that song for some reason. And we get asked to play it all the time.
Nice.
So, yeah. So that was brought back in the set, especially when we play in America, Canada, and Japan, and what have you.
And are you always mindful of that when you're performing in either Europe as opposed to America? Like, are there certain songs that you feel land better in England or in America?
Yeah, when in America we decided to do "Take Me Home" because a lot of people really wanted to hear that song. We put you put a thing up saying what do you want to hear and stuff like that, and that was one of the songs that everybody in America wanted to hear. And we had
I love "Take Me Home." It's great.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we already talked about "Roses and Rings." That's the next one.
Yeah,
and always love that one. One of my favorites.
Yeah,
Alrighty, and
that was one of my favorites as well. And guys, because it was one of the first songs we ever wrote.
Yep, with your dad right there watching cricket.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
against the West Indies. I'll never forget it.
Alrighty, and there she goes again.
There she goes again. But it's just a very simple 3-chord song. That was written probably around the same time. One of the first ones we've done. Very simple. It's a Northern Soul beat, just like a 3-chord.
And Ginger is on this track, right?
Pardon?
And Ginger is on this track, right?
Ginger was on the original, yeah. That was the first single we ever. That was the first single we ever released. Yeah, but not on the album. Yeah, that was changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and we just went through "Take Me Home."
Yeah. There she goes again. What else is on it?
Oh, "Take Me Home" is the final one.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's "Take Me Home."
I've just talked about "Take Me Home."
Oh yeah, exactly. We had talked about it when we talked about American versus British audiences. But yeah, that's a bit of what you fancy.
Okay.
For the ages. Okay, so a bit of what you fancy was released, and tell me about Rudy Richmond joining the band.
Well, we had to have a drummer. Ian Wallace was going to do it at one point to play on the album, but then Ian was doing a lot of different things, and then I was speaking to Rudy the other night actually about this. So I was saying to him, when was the first time we met? Because my memory gets a bit fuzzy sometimes, and we auditioned drummers. I think we auditioned about 3 or 4 down at Mate Studios in the Valley, and there was a couple of guys went in. I don't think I just listened from outside. I was standing there with Sharon outside, and then Rudy came down. I recognised Rudy from Law and Justice. He was in
Okay.
band with Maria McKee, and I remember that they'd played on the U2 tour, supporting U2, and I loved Law and Justice. I thought they were brilliant. And then from the outside, I was like, "Oh my God, listen to him. That's like Ian Wallace. That's what we need. We need somebody like him." And instantly, he was in the band.
Nice.
Instantly, yeah. And it was like, and he's still one of my best friends to this day. He really is. I adore him.
All right.
So
So
it was instantly, once Rudy came in, there was like two young lads came in, from what I remember. Oh, they all went on to be in very successful bands. Randy Castillo was going to play at one point, but then obviously he was with Ozzy. There was a few others, and then when Rudy came in, it was like, that was it.
yep, that was that. You guys stilled.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so A Bit of What You Fancy was released and it reached #2 on the UK charts. What was it like to achieve that success?
Well, it's amazing, especially getting the first gold album, and but we'd had two or three big hits before the album came out, and then we got the gold album. I mean, that was unheard of, and the only person, the reason we didn't get to #1 was Phil Collins. So I still hate Phil Collins to this day. But
yeah.
But
I mean, I hate him more for Tarzan, but there we go.
We ended up playing on Top of the Pops with him as well, which was quite fun. But yeah, but even to get to #2, I mean, that album sold millions and millions of copies everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's so great. I remember when I got my first gold album, and we went back to my flat in London after I'd got it, and we were having a drink and looking at it, and everything. I was with Crusher, actually, a friend of mine, Crusher.
Yeah.
And we were christening the album, if you know what I mean. And then Crusher said, "Do you think they actually play?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He says, "Do you think that they'll play? The album would play on the stereo, right?"
Yeah.
So I says, "Let's have a go," right? So we carefully took it out really carefully. And I put it on the stereo, and it did play. But do you know what it was?
What?
Unforgettable. It was Nat King Cole. They just put out a disc on it, and then I found out later a lot of the albums are Frank Sinatra or Nat King Cole, because they had so many albums. That's who built Capitol Records and EMI. So you got to be careful when you get a gold album or a platinum album. It's not actually the artist that's on there. That was so funny.
My goodness.
Yeah.
You could probably call them and have them like correct the mistake if you really, really want the Quireboys album.
I thought it was really cool, though. I thought it was cool that you did that. Because my dad used to love Nat King Cole, so I was like really happy about it. You can tell by how many grooves are on, and then you can have a look to see how many tracks are on, if it's the right album or not.
That's right.
That's what we found out. Yeah.
Cool.
I guess you can't on CDs.
Yeah, just not on CDs, but hey, I've always preferred vinyl.
Yeah, so far.
Awesome. Eventually you wrote Bittersweet and Twisted with Guy Bailey. And did you feel like you had grown as a songwriter?
Well, I think what people forget is that we had been on tour at that point non-stop for years. So before we got the deal, then we were on tour for even longer. And then we moved to Ireland. I mean, Guy just slept for about 3 months. And then it was just like water off a duck's back. Let's go back in and just get these songs done. And we actually recorded the demos for that album. I'd love to hear, because we went in to a recording studio in Dublin, and from what I remember, they sounded better than anything that was actually finished with. That album should have been out within 6 months. The only trouble was we had to wait for Bob Rock, because the record company wanted Bob Rock. That's why it took that long before it came out. Everything had been done. Everything had been written. We
Yeah.
were ready to go about 4 or 5 months, not even a year after we finished touring.
Yeah. And
It
it
should have.
also,
I would have put out the demo album. It sounded so good because it was just us live in the studio, and we'd all been playing together for such a long time. We knew how to work,
Mhm.
and we all thought it sounded brilliant. We're like, well, why do we need a producer when it sounds this good?
yeah.
But they wanted the name. And then
Mhm.
in the end, Bob Rock ended up getting fired, I guess. But and we used Chris Kimsey, so it was really bizarre. But it was
Mhm.
just 2 years of hanging around. It was,
Yeah. And it also had a consequence that no one could have anticipated. It wound up being released right in the middle of the grunge era of rock.
Yeah,
And
I don't think that's mattered really. I mean, we still sold a lot of records. We were still packing out everywhere. That didn't really affect us. We weren't that huge in America. You know what I mean? Canada,
okay.
we were massive, but it didn't really affect us that much. I think it just we should have had a break. Nobody give us a break. You
Mm.
know, it was just too much all the time. It was constant. We basically played ourselves into the ground.
Oh. Right.
So yeah, I mean, if it'd been up to me and Guy, we would have released the album that we done in Ireland. It sounded bloody brilliant. It was just us, like raw band playing live in the studio, which the Quireboys should sound like.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. I'd be
so,
curious to hear that.
so would I. Must be out there somewhere.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly.
Rudy sent me some songs the other day that he recorded himself from the rehearsals, and I'd totally forgotten about them. And I was like, oh my god, these sound great.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
you know
there's
what? What can you do? I mean, it's all happened now. You just have to move on, don't you?
yeah, and you guys are moving on brilliantly. You're gonna bring out the new
Yeah,
album, so
yeah. It's all going
onward.
good.
I wanted to ask you about one thing in LA. Is it true that you went to a Nirvana concert one time?
See who?
Did you see Nirvana when they played in Los
Oh,
Angeles?
I did actually. Yeah, I went to the Forum.
Whoa, what
The
was that
Forum.
like?
It was really bizarre because I think when you consider a few years earlier, just 3 or 4 years, or 3 or 4 years earlier, I'd went down with David Lee Roth, Guns N' Roses, Billy Idol, and Bon Jovi were playing, and the whole place was just going crazy, and so it was brilliant. It was a brilliant evening, you
Yeah.
know. It was an incredible gig and really good fun. Everyone was having a laugh and everything like that. And
Hmm.
then when I went to see Nirvana, I was like, "What the fuck is happening here?" It was just like everybody was so miserable, and I was just like thinking, "Wow, how can this change so quickly?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
crowd didn't even look like they were happy. I was like, I was in the bar. I watched like 2 songs. I went back to the bar.
Okay, so they were never really your thing.
Not really. I know exactly where they were coming from. You know. It's. I mean, do you know what? I heard the songs like everybody else. All the air. All I need is the air that I breathe. I know. You know where they got the songs from, and a lot of things like that. I mean, he was like he's one of them guys like Noel Gallagher and all them that have got that talent to rip off songs. I wish I had that talent. I can't do that and get away with it. You know.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a wonderful talent to have, and they lucked out massively. I mean, you hate good luck to them. You know what I mean? Didn't really affect us at all. We needed the break. We really did. So it was fine.
Okay.
But yeah, hey, it was all the other. What I couldn't understand was all the other bands coming out that were like heavy rock bands, and then all of a sudden they were wearing shorts and checky shirts. It was a bit bizarre.
Yeah, I mean they were trying to look like Nirvana and kind of the Seattle scene.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
Seattle's a bit like Newcastle. It just pisses with rain all the time, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of, and also it was he came from an economically depressed area as well, and
But then wasn't Pearl Jam? I remember when Pearl Jam were Mother Love Bone because they supported the Dogs the More,
yeah,
and I
that's right.
always thought they were very even Pearl Jam. I thought they just had a different singer, but they were very like hard rock, weren't they? We just had a different singer.
Yeah. And actually, I wanted to ask you about one concert that you played, not with Pearl Jam, but you went to Gathering of the Tribes, and among other bands, you played alongside Soundgarden and the Cramps. What was that like?
Well, we done 2 of them, Gathering of the Tribes. That was Ian Asprey's idea. We done one in San Francisco, one in LA.
Mhm.
And the one in LA, I remember Mick Cripps and the guys from LA Guns came on the tour bus with us. And we had been up for a few days doing what we usually do, going insane. And I remember coming off the tour bus, and it was the first time that we met a group called the Charlatans from England. And I remember them saying, "Oh my God, we've never seen a band so fucked up." But we had beautiful women with us. And then it was live on MTV as well. And then they couldn't understand how we could be, we hadn't slept for a couple of days or whatever, as you did back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we went on stage and done one of the best shows we've ever done, and then come off, and we were absolutely shattered again. It was like, that's how you do it, lads. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that was a really famous promoter who'd done Led Zeppelin. I remember Richard Cole was doing this at the time as well. What was his name? The guy, he was one of the most famous promoters in America. Oh, what was his name?
Danny Goldberg.
He'd done Led Zeppelin, The Who, Stones, everybody. That was one of his last things he'd done. I'll find out his name and you can put it underneath.
Okay.
But he put them 2 shows on. Yeah, they were both live on MTV. I didn't really see any of the other bands. It was a really bizarre list. There was like Queen Latifah, Iggy Pop.
Mm-hmm.
It was before Lollapalooza and all that.
Yeah.
They were trying to get a mixture of everybody together. It was Ian Asprey's idea, which I thought was a good idea, but I don't think it really kicked off.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was a good idea. I remember being there. And I've seen it a few times on MTV, and you wouldn't have believed how knackered we were, but we done a good gig on both shows.
Yeah.
We were always professional. We weren't drunk all the time, what everybody's saying.
Alrighty. So, as we all know, you guys wound up disbanding after the release of Bittersweet and Twisted, or a couple of years after, I should say. And during your time away from the Quireboys, you became a father. What was that like?
I became a dad in '94.
And before? Oh.
Yeah. After the Quireboys.
Nice.
So when I was living in Los Angeles.
Wow.
And now I'm a granddad.
Yeah, exactly.
I just see my grandson recently in Canada, which is wonderful.
And was that a great?
I'd be a granddad. He's the most beautiful little boy you've ever seen. So yeah, that changed a lot,
Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah. It's
So,
a good thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Jonathan. We're all called Jonathan. The 3 of us. My real name's Jonathan. My son's Jonathan. My grandson's Jonathan. And when we're all together, we're like, and somebody goes, John, or like that, we're like 3 meerkats turning around.
Aw. Now, have you ever done like a picture of all 3 of you with the bandana on?
Actually, I haven't. That's a good idea. I should have done that, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
But was it fun just being a dad after so many years as a working musician?
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. It was just like being normal again. It was brilliant, And it's so good being with my grandson and just hanging out and
Nice.
People, you do have a life. Just it's not rock and roll 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I love them so much. It's been a wonderful. I've had a wonderful time. After I'd done the rock cruise, I went over to see him in Canada, and we had such a great time.
Aw.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm sure they're both really proud of you too.
You know what? It's so funny. I had such a laugh with him. We had such a laugh, And, his granddad could make up good stories. Yeah.
Alrighty. So eventually you reformed the band without a couple of the original members.
In 98, 99, we got offered a deal from Sanctuary Records, which were a label put together by Iron Maiden's management and all the big wigs at them, and they signed quite a few bands, and they offered the Quireboys to get back together.
Mm-hmm.
So the first person I called was Guy Bailey, obviously, and then Chris Johnstone and Rudy and Nigel, and then Guy Bailey. He didn't want to do it.
Mm.
He said, you know, you got to remember that we played all them years. I mean, a long time, from the days of back in the transit van up until the Monsters of Rock, and then touring all over the world and doing everything. And me and Guy never had a break, really, apart from that break after that. And he didn't. And Guy Bailey just said, "I shan't tread the boards anymore, dear boy. I'm not doing it." And I said, "Look, they've offered a lot of money to do this and all that." He says, "I've got plenty of money. I don't want to do it. Don't do it." And but he said, "Good luck. You know, he did. You know, you do it if you want to do it. If you want to do it, go and, you know, use the Quireboys' name. Do it." Chris Johnstone had got a family at that point as well. Rudy's got a family. They didn't want to do it. Nigel had just got divorced, and he was living in New York, and so we set up Hall in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. And plus, Guy Bailey really did not want to go back to Los Angeles again. He just wanted to stay in London, in England.
Wasn't he working as a librarian at one point?
Who?
Guy Bailey, like, wasn't he a librarian at one point?
A librarian? Where'd you get that from? Never heard that. That's a good one.
No. Okay.
Was it a library in a pub?
No, I'd heard someone online mention it.
I've never heard that one before. That's very good, though. I've never heard him being alive. You mean? No, he's never worked as a librarian.
Okay. Fair enough.
Who told you that?
Someone online, I think, mentioned it. And the thing is, I don't really know a whole lot about what he did when he wasn't being a musician. Like, did he ever have?
No, he had a home studio, so he was still doing music.
Okay.
You know, he was still he was teaching young kids how to play the guitar.
Oh, okay.
He was he had his own home studio. He was working on songs for other people. He wrote songs for Johnny Halliday. He wrote songs for a lot of different artists. And so he kept on songwriting. He just didn't want to tour, and he didn't want to go back to. He didn't really want to be in Los Angeles to do an album, and he didn't want to tour again, and he didn't want to. You know, that album would have entailed touring and doing all that. And he was like, "Going, I don't want to do all that again." He says, "But, you know, knock yourself out. You go for it." So, and then, so we ended up being back in Los Angeles to do that one. Yeah. And you know, it's like, that was a good album. I thought that was a good album. I think it was the best one that we done out of the ones when we got back together. And then I think Nigel played on the second album, and then Nigel left as well. So I should have left then, really. But anyway, well, it's another story.
Anyway, so over the next 10 years, or more, well, 20 years, really. I mean, you guys made more albums and you played together. And of course, we know now you decided to go back to the other members of the original lineup.
The truth of the matter was that everybody, you know, me and Guy Bailey, Chris Johnstone, Rudy, we'd never lost touch. We were always still really good friends. And Nigel, of course. And we were all talking, and I was, you know, Guy Bailey was the first to call me. He was like, "Fuck this. They're not having our name." And I was like, he says, "Let's start the band and do a new album." And I says, "All right." I said, "You sure?" He went, "Yeah, let's do it." I was like, and then Chris, same thing. And Rudy and Nigel. Like, then I know that we'd done a few albums together, and I was on tour with them for quite a while. But it was just like, you know, that was never the real Quireboys. Do you know what I mean? The real
Mhm.
Quireboys is the band that I was with in the back of a transit band with, and spent all my, you know, real life with, you
Mhm.
know, and they were, you know, Chris. In my head, it was always Guy Bailey, you know, Guy Bailey, Chris Johnstone, and Nigel, and Rudy. That we were the Quireboys. You know,
Yeah. And
everything that was signed in contracts and everything like that was always me and Guy Bailey anyway. It was never anybody else.
yeah,
So
I
it
mean,
was
you were the main
always,
songwriters, so
yeah, and we, but you know, and it was our thing, and nobody ever had a problem ever with what we've done. So we're doing a new album, the new single. I'm doing a show. Can I tell everybody? I'm playing on the. Will this be out before the 8th of September?
yes, definitely. It should be out
All
within
right.
the
Well,
next
listen,
couple of days.
I'm playing a solo gig on the 8th of September at the Underworld in Camden, and I was going to play the acoustic, but I'm going to put a band together, and I'm going to play songs off the first of my solo albums. But I'm also Nigel Mogg's flying in. We're going to have the band together, and I'm going to play a few songs. I'm going to play the first single that is coming off the new Quireboys album, which is being released next year. The single's coming out um, at the end of October, and I'm going to film part of the video there in Camden. Nigel's flying in, the guys are flying, so there's going to be a lot of special guests and a lot of people appearing, and we're going to make an evening of it. So yeah, so that's what we're doing on the 8th of September. So get your asses down. Be a great night.
Yep. And
You'll
the
see a lot of
single,
a lot of your old pals there.
exactly. Now, did you
Yeah.
write the single with Guy Bailey? Is it one of the works that he left
Yeah,
behind?
yeah. It's all. I'm not gonna say what it is yet until the
Okay.
night, but I've got but I've literally got 20 songs, 21
Hmm.
for the new album that we're going through. That I'm
Well,
and certain things that I've got to change and certain things. But we started recording the other week, so it was like everything's going really well so
excellent.
far.
Yeah.
That's what I was singing last night. So I've been like just getting everything down, getting everything together for when the guys come out. So
Excellent.
yeah,
Yep. So, sounds like you're hard at work and you want to make the album as good as it can be.
I am, and I've also got the Spike's Free House coming out live at Sweden Rock, which is me and Simon Kirk from Free. It's half Frankie Miller songs, half Free with Luke Morley on the guitar and Mark Stanley on the piano. That's finally coming out,
Excellent.
and so that's going to be cool as well. That sounds great. We're singing half Free songs and half Frankie Miller. Well, I'm singing half Free songs and half Frankie Miller. Sounds brilliant. Live
Nice.
at Sweden Rock, so that's coming out as well. But the major focus is obviously on the new Quireboys album for
Mhm.
next year and the new single, which is coming out.
Yeah.
So we're going to film part of the video at the Underworld. That's the
Excellent.
idea anyway. That's what Nigel's coming in from LA, and so it's all going to be
Excellent.
a bit of a lark, dear.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to ask about the final public appearance that you guys made. Of course, you had the concert this past December, and
Yeah.
even though Guy Bailey was not able to play, you had him on stage for a minute, and it was actually, from what I could observe, quite a lovely moment where you all basically honored him.
We had a great evening. We had a great night. If real Quireboys fans remember, Guy Bailey used to walk off stage a lot in the old days and just go in the dressing room and have a whiskey and go, good gig, lads, last night, tonight. So, it wasn't so much him playing, it was him being there that made everybody's evening, and yeah, it was very emotional. I got some great pictures of me and him from that night. We had such a
Yeah.
laugh. Guy Bailey was probably the funniest man you've ever met. He was so hilarious. And yeah, he's missed by everybody. You got no
Yep.
idea. But
Yeah,
anyway,
including his fans.
we're moving on. This album is for him. Trust me. And Jim Cregan and everybody who's heard the song so far have all went, this is the best album we've ever done. So
Yeah, I'm excited to hear it.
it is. It's really cool. If you like it, you like English rock and roll, you're gonna love it, love. You know what I mean?
Excellent. Well, I love English
Proper
rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Thanks.
So, wrapping up, what are some other ambitions that you have as an artist and a human being? Like, what do you see in the path ahead?
My ambition, I got to take one day at a time. I want to get on. I'm gonna get this. Get the single done. The single's done. We're gonna do the video. Sorry. Get the rest of the album done for release beginning of next year. I'm gonna tour the fuck out this album all over the world. I'm getting on every festival that I can and every show that I can. All over the world. We're all ready to go, and that's going to be enough for me, I think, for the next year and a bit to do. I'm really looking forward to getting back on stage properly again and kicking that mic stand up in the air. And I'll try and get some new clothes if I can, instead of wearing the same clothes all the time.
Okay. I think the fans will love you either way.
All right then.
All right. Well, we're all looking forward to seeing you and hearing the new music.
Thank you very much. Thank you for keeping rock and roll alive with the Quireboys.